Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you guys how to install an interior door handle on a bathroom. The only difference is from my other video that I showed you where you're installing a door lock is this one has no holes. Okay, so for this door itself, we removed the old one. We kept the hinges and everything else at the same height. We just replaced the door. This door was purchased from Habitat for Humanity for I believe $25. It's a good looking door, just needed to get painted. Anytime we're trying to determine a height, I typically just mark 36 inches off the finished floor and put a little mark on the front of my door. Next, I'm gonna grab whatever it is that I'm gonna be assembling, whether it's an exterior door handle or an interior door handle or a doorknob. I'll grab that, open it, make sure that everything is in there that needs to be in there. Sometimes you will come across products that have been returned by whoever it was that bought it, tried to assemble it. Maybe they didn't like it, but in the meantime, they might have messed up a thread or they didn't return the screws. So now that I have my 36-inch or my 3-foot mark, I'll go ahead and I'll just make a light mark on this door. Now keep in mind, this is a finished door, so I'm trying to make as less marking on this door as possible. Yeah, I can do some touch-up paint on it at the end, but only if I really have to. After I have my 2 marks, this one is going to be 2 3/8 from the face of the door. I'm going to take my combination and I'm just going to square up my line. Once I have that, I'm going to use a 2 1/8 hole saw, and I'm going to literally just drill on that line that I made on the mark of 2 3/8. So when I'm drilling this, I want to make sure that I don't drill all the way through the door. Reason being, you will get a little bit of tear out and it's just gonna deteriorate the other side of the door. So a good rule is to just drill halfway through until you can feel the pilot drill bit on the other side with your finger, and then come in from the other side of the door and meet where you started. So this first mark that I have, this is an important mark, okay? This 36-inch, I want to transfer this line to the face of the door. And how I'm going to use that, I'm going to use a combination square. So I'm just going to level it up with that first mark that I made on the face and just transfer the mark onto the other side. So once you have the distance of the face of your door or the thickness, find center of that, and that center is what we're going to use to drill the hole for this latch to go through that hole. So I'm going to use a 1-inch spade bit, and you can see I have clearance on both sides, and there's my half mark right there. Try not to drill on an angle, side to side, up and down. Try and keep it straight as possible, and take your time until the spade bit reaches through to the first hole that you drilled. So there is an easier option. Instead of using this big latch that you have to mortise out, you can use a smaller face that will cover that latch once you remove it, and you just press this directly into the door, and that would literally be how your door would look at the front. Now for this one, obviously it has to be mortised, so there is an easier method if you don't want to use that. So for this video, I'm going to show you guys how to obviously use this face latch that we're using I think it looks a lot nicer as opposed to the other one. But you know, to each his own, I should say. And another thing is, if you do drill your hole a little bit further to the right, this can be adjusted. So now that I have my latch where I want it, I'm just gonna trace around it with a pencil, and I just need to give myself an outline of what exactly needs to be mortised. So here I'm just using a chisel to make a couple relief marks and allowing some little slits, which will allow me to remove the excess that I don't want inside of this latch where it's supposed to be flush. So here I just did a couple of cuts inside where I'm going to be removing this excess wood. So I just wanted to show you guys how to go about using a chisel and how to get that notched out of here. And I know for the first part my hand was kind of blocking it, so here you guys can get a better visual as opposed to how I do that. And I just tap it with a hammer on the end of the chisel and just drive it into the material a little bit. I don't want to go too thick. I'm only trying to go down about a 1/16. And then from here I'm just going to do my edges, try and get it going in a straight line, and just get the perimeter of my markings out. Now I don't want to go outside of my lines. I typically want to go just a little bit inside of my lines, as opposed to having a big piece missing once you put your latch in there. So anytime you guys are chiseling something, you'll want to make sure that you take your time, because these chisels, if they're brand new, are very sharp, and you want to avoid cutting yourself by accident. You don't need to apply a lot of pressure. I'm barely just scraping this, and once you have those little slits or those little marks, they'll literally just fall off with a little tap of a hammer. Now anytime you're getting close to the edge, you want to back off a bit so you don't gouge out the finished part of the door, and then you can come in from the top and clean it up. So that's just a practice that I use. A lot of times when I look at doors, or I see doors that have previously been done, they stick out like a sore thumb. So you'll want to just put a little bit of extra time into it and just get it as clean and as nice as possible. If you do over gouge something or overcut something, there are products that you can use to refill it, so that you don't need to worry about it too much. But if you can avoid doing something twice, then I suggest you just take a little bit of extra time and just get it done perfectly the first time, or as good as you possibly can, I should say. So I only notched down a 1/16 on this door. I need to come a little bit deeper. I just wanted to show you guys how a 1/16 inch, or how you would clean something out for a simple latch to be installed on this. The one that I'm using is, I believe, an 1/8. I need to go another 1/16 deeper. I'll show you guys the dimension on an up close. So it's right here. You'll see that 1/8. That's how deep I really need to go to get my latch flush in here. I'm using my oscillating tool. It's way faster. I don't expect everybody to be using something like this, so that's why I just wanted to show you guys the chisel method first. And now I'm just going to speed this up and use my oscillating tool to go down an extra 1/16. So now once I put my latch in, I'm just gonna do a quick dry fit. Needs to come down a little bit more. Okay, so now we're good. I have the 2 holes that's gonna be holding this latch. I'm gonna just trace them out with a pencil mark. And the reason I'm doing that is because those holes have a little bit of a lip, and those are what's gonna be stopping my latch from being flush with the door. So I'm just gonna use a drill bit and just make a little depression, nothing too big. It's not gonna hurt anything. I'm not over drilling. It's just so once I screw those in, they go nice and flush. Next, I'm gonna create 2 pilot holes for my screws when I go to assemble this. So once our door latch is flush, we can now attempt to put on the handles. I'm gonna put on the outside one first, and I'm just putting the 3 pieces into the 3 holes where they align. The center one is gonna be for the lock and for the door itself to open and close, and the 2 smaller holes on each side of the center are just screws that's gonna hold the door latch together. This piece that came with this door lock is just to hold the door into place while you get things adjusted. Now I'll use a torpedo level just to level up the door handle itself. Now I need to remove this housing from the handle, and how I do that is, see, there's no screws. The screws are on the inside. So I need to get that little key that comes in the package with the screws. There should be a hole located on the handle itself that you just put it in there and push, and while you pull, everything will come apart. Now this square housing I need to remove to get access to those screw holes. I'm just going to use a chisel or maybe a flathead screwdriver or something small that will allow me to pry off the notches. Try not to use something that will damage it. Try and be gentle as possible. You don't need a lot of force to remove these things. It's literally just getting it in there and popping it back. Once you remove that, do a dry fit using the handle and see which way does this need to be oriented before you can assemble the screws onto the door. So this way it won't allow me if I try to put the handle on. So if I reverse it, now it'll allow the handle to go on, which means it needs to be this way in order for the screws to go on. So now that I figured that out, I'm gonna hand tighten these screws about halfway or 3/4 in, and I want to make sure that the thread is getting a proper bite and it's not twisted or bent before I go ahead and use an actual screwdriver to do this. So you'll notice I screwed them side to side. I didn't tighten it all the way on one end. I did a little bit on the left, tightened a little bit on the right, and then back to the left, back to the right. So now that we have that tight, we can put this faceplate back on. Now these clips will just automatically snap on there. Don't forget, you can use a torpedo level to make sure that it's level, and taking the handle, you can push it on, and that's all she wrote. Now there is a lock on this, so you can test the lock, make sure it works, make sure the handle works. And once your door is good and it's operating properly, I like to make a center hole of this catch that's gonna hit the strike plate, and I'll mark it on the face of the door jamb. I can also mark a mark at the top of the latch and one at the bottom. So whichever one works for you, you can use. The main thing is you want to know where that latch is gonna fall on the door jamb. So I'm gonna transfer my center mark right on the face where the door is gonna be closed. I'm gonna take my strike plate. I'm gonna put that the middle of that mark right in the middle of my strike plate hole, and now I'm gonna trace around my strike plate, giving me an outline of what needs to be mortised for my strike plate to be flush with the door jamb. So here again, I'm just demonstrating how you could use it with the chisel and a hammer to mortise it out, making your little notches, your little grooves, and then slowly cleaning it out once you have everything notched out. I'm gonna speed this up by using my oscillating tool. So you'll notice when I'm using my oscillating tool, I'm using my hand as sort of I would say a brace, and just rocking it back and forth on my hand. It's not floating freely and trying to make this cut. I'm resting all the weight on my finger, my pinky, and then just allowing the machine to work itself and just rock it slowly back and forth. Next, I'm going to use the chisel. I'm going to clean the edges, and now literally I can just scrape off the little notches that I made. So using the same center line that I had before, I'm gonna use my spade bit, and I'm gonna drill out using a 1-inch spade bit for the hole of my latch itself. You could get away using a 15th and 16th spade bit. It doesn't have to be a 1-inch spade bit. It could be a 16th smaller. And like I said before, I just drill the pilot holes for my screws just so they don't deviate, and it doesn't give me a problem when putting my screws in. So that's it. It's that simple. Installing a door like this, where you have to mortise the strike plate, drill the hole, and mortise the latch, you're looking at probably about 20 minutes. Now obviously, if these holes were already created for you, you'd be done in about 5 to 10 minutes. Okay guys, so that's it. Hopefully you guys got some good tips. Anybody who's never installed door handles, I'm pretty sure using this information that I gave you, make sure that you use a handheld screwdriver when you're tightening anything on the door, when you're putting the two door latches together, and you always hand tighten them first. If you do use a drill or something right away and it's powerful and the screws are not completely aligned, if they're off a bit, you're gonna wear those threads and then it's garbage. So take your time while you're doing that. Also, if you're using a chisel, make sure that the chisel is sharp, and make sure that you handle it correctly just so you don't injure yourself. Stay tuned for more videos. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'm going to throw up some more videos for you guys.